Looks good, Colin.
All right,
First slide
thank
now.
you. So you can just see the slides. Perfect. All right, thanks everyone. So this is going to be, this is the Proteus Innovation Competition. Thank you everyone for showing up. I'm going to give a little brief introduction, make a few comments about the innovation competition, just to keep everyone up to speed. And then we'll get going. This is going to be, it's a small group here. And so, Rebecca, if you're on throughout, if there's any chat questions, feel free to interrupt. But I will stop periodically just to see if there's any questions. And then we get to the end, of course, we can have a Q&A as well. Okay. So thanks so much. Just so everybody is aware, this is the Proteus Innovation Competition. This is the business plan workshop. We're going to talk in a few moments about the business plan that will be submitted to this competition. Coming up, there is the business plan submission deadline on the 22nd of February. So it's a little ways away, but just about a month, right? Not too far. Then the pitch workshop is on the 1st of March, and the pitch competition, which is why everyone is here, is the 29th of March, 2023. And more information about that will be coming to your inboxes. And if you have any doubts, you can go to the website, Proteus IC, innovationcompetition.com, competition outline, you can get all the information there. First, thank you to our competition partners. This started off as a little venture with just the University of Western Ontario, but it has grown to 5 universities in Southwestern Ontario, where the tech transfer offices from each university contributed technology that allowed teams from all the universities, actually the community, there's no restriction to it, to come up and try their hand at coming up with a business plan and a pitch to come up with a commercialization strategy for that technology. So we can't do this without our competition partners. So thank you so much to all the universities that are involved. And of course, thank you so much to our sponsors who are providing the much needed funding so this competition can exist. So thank you to Galleons, Explore IP, Gordon and Lang, and Life Science Ontario. Thank you so much. Okay, it's a pitch competition, $5,000 per technology, one winner for each technology. That's why you're here. But to get there, you got to do a business plan. And this is the business plan workshop. I'm just going to take right from the website what the requirements are for the business plan. This is not a 50-page business plan. This is recommended 4 pages. This is an outline of a business plan, how you would approach commercializing the technology you've chosen to work on. So this is really a high-level overview. And then during the rest of the discussion, we'll go through some of the details and some of the recommendations for things to cover and why to cover them. So obviously, understand the market that you're playing in. To understand the technology that you are championing. What is the problem it's addressing? How is it different than the competition? Is it ready to go? What needs to be done to get it ready to go if it's not ready to go? And then how do you get it to market? So we'll go into more details in all of this, but realize that when you put this business plan together, it is condensed. And sometimes writing something in a condensed fashion is much more difficult than writing something that's longer. So you have to really understand what it is you're trying to address, where to focus your writing, and be very specific about what your recommendations for how you would commercialize this technology. So this is the Proteus Innovation Competition. And really what it's all about, what the tagline on the website is, if you've gone there, is creating viable commercialization strategies. That's what it's all about. That's what we want to see. For each technology, we want to be presented with a viable commercialization strategy. If you had this technology, how would you go about commercializing it? So why do we want that? So I'm going to start with an example of why we want viable commercialization strategies. This is an example from quite a few years ago. And just as a bit of background, if anybody remembers the Walkerton water tragedy that happened up north of here, you know, the water treatment plant was not operating properly. A toxic form of E. coli got into the water treatment facility, got into the water supply of the town of Walkerton, and it led to kidney failure and death of a number of people. So it was a big deal, a big tragedy. And it turns out that the source of that toxin is E. coli 0157. This is a fairly common toxic form of E. coli. You'll often see food recalls due to E. coli 0157. So it's a problem. And it's a problem that exists in the environment. It's in cattle. Doesn't cause a problem for cattle. Cattle don't care about it, but it just happens to reside there, proliferate there. And then due to what cattle do, it gets into the water supply of the groundwater. And it can contaminate foods. Certainly we see often lettuce recalls due to E. coli 0157. It can get into the water supply of a town like Walkerton when the water treatment plant isn't running properly. Well, a very, very smart scientist at UBC, Dr. Brett Finlay, thought, you know, I have an idea to create a vaccine in cattle that would prevent E. coli 0157 from colonizing the gut of the cattle. And he did this. He created a vaccine, he tested it in the lab, wrote a patent, and they ended up licensing that to a biotech company called BioNiche. And if you're not aware, BioNiche was a biotech company that was here in London, Ontario for a while. Okay, so what happened? So the research was fantastic. Dr. Finlay and his lab created the vaccine and created a patent and showed in the lab that the idea for this vaccine could work. They licensed it, and they showed that further work showed that the technology works. It actually reduces E. coli 0157 colonization in cattle. Of course, if you're going to make a drug, vaccine is a drug that you are going to administer to, in this case, cattle, but even with people, you have to manufacture that. And you need a manufacturing facility specific for vaccines. And so they built one. The company that licensed the technology built the manufacturing facility. Spent about 25 million. And they got it approved, they got it licensed, so they were allowed to manufacture that vaccine. They had to undergo regulatory approval. It is a treatment for cattle, and they had to do field trials and showed that it was efficacious. It prevented the E. coli 0157 from colonizing, and it didn't cause any harm. It didn't hurt the cattle, and it didn't hurt the food supply, because you remember cattle are part of the food supply. So they got approved by the regulators to go ahead and licensed for sale the vaccine. So they sold it. They started manufacturing it and selling it, and it turns out no one wanted it. No one would pay for the use of that vaccine. There was no real reason for farmers to pay money for a vaccine that didn't help their cattle. It worked. It prevented the E. coli 0157 from colonizing the cattle. But again, that wasn't a problem for cattle. Cattle don't care. It didn't cause a problem for them. The vaccine did not make the cattle healthier or any more valuable to the farmers. So there was no good reason for the farmers to buy the vaccine. So while the research worked, the product development work, and the regulatory approval, all of that worked, no sales occurred. So of course, the lesson from that is that the best technology, the best intellectual property protection, the best development strategy, the best team and execution, none of that overcomes the absence of a paying customer. So it's an important lesson. The customer needs to care about what you're providing. Unfortunately, this is a really common problem in technology development. So what can we do about that? How do we think about that, right? Technology development, you create an idea, and the university and the hospitals, we create lots of ideas, lots of amazing ideas. But then you have to develop them, get them to the point where you can test them in the lab and then eventually in the market and say, does it work? And there are a bunch of risks. This is a very risky process. And there are a bunch of risks involved. One is bringing a new technology to the market is risky, right? There's technology risk. Will it work? Well, that's a manageable risk. That we can, get to that answer as quickly as possible for as little money as possible to say, does it work? That's pretty reasonable risk to take on. Execution risk. Do you have the right team to execute on this idea and get it to market? Get this technology out into the world? Well, that's also a manageable risk because you can determine who is on your team. If you don't have the right people, if you have identified a gap, you can fill that gap. Get the right people. Get the people on the team you need to get this technology out to the market. The most important risk, the biggest risk to technology commercialization is market risk. It's the reason most technologies fail in their commercialization. And so we want to manage that market risk. And how do we do that? How do we go about managing the market risk? Sorry, I didn't know if there was a comment there. So we want to mitigate market risk, and we want to do that through a careful attention to the market. We want to assess the market. But what does that mean? What does market assessment mean? So the first thing we want to assess is something called product market fit. So I'm just going to spend a moment to talk about product market fit. For those of you who don't know, product market fit is part of a larger business model process called business model canvas. We're not going to talk about business model canvas. It is for later on down the road. What we want to determine is that there's an actual fit in the market for the technology, that somebody out there cares about it and is willing to adopt it. That's the whole purpose of market assessment in the early stages to determine product market fit. Okay, so what is product market fit? First of all, you have a new technology. So we talked about that a little bit. What is it? What does it do? Does it work? It solves a problem in the marketplace. So you have to understand what that problem is. What is it? Really understand the nature of the problem. And then, how is that problem currently solved? Because presumably, the new technology is an improvement over whatever the current solutions are. So you want to be, in your assessment of the market, you really want to understand what is currently being used to solve the problem in the market that the technology addresses. Then you want to identify who has the problem. That will be the customer or user of the new technology. How many are there? Who are they? How does this problem fit into their lives? And Do you understand sort of the process by which they address this problem and how important this problem is to them and how much they want a new solution to the problem? And that's called, in part, the value proposition. In other words, why would the customer find the new solution valuable enough to change what they're doing, stop using the existing solutions to address the problem? And together, this is called product market fit. So it's just a framework by which to understand the very early stages of how the technology fits into the marketplace. And you can do basic market research to try to understand this. And so I'm going to take a moment and just go through a little bit more detail on each of these items. The presentation will be available. The Zoom presentation will be available. So if you ever need to review it, you'll be able to do that. So the problem or need in the market. You want to define what it is your technology is addressing. What problem is being solved? What need is being filled? How is the problem need currently addressed? Who provides those current solutions? That's a really important question. The more you can find out about the current solutions and who provides them, the more information you have about your solution, why it's better, and who the competition is, or who your future partners may be. Current competition may be a future partner. And so understanding who's providing the current solutions and who they are, and then at some point in time, you'll want to figure out whether they'd be interested in your solution, your new solution. That's a legit question to ask. How did they get to market? Maybe you'll be getting to market in the same way. So the more you can find out about the current solution providers, how they got to market, and then how it compares to your solution, how you will get to market, the more information you can provide about that, the better. Why are the current solutions inadequate? What's missing? From the customer perspective, they need to overcome some problem that the current solutions are not overcoming. Your solution provides that. So understanding the inadequacies of the current solutions is important. And if you can quantitate that in any way, that's important, because you can quantitate how much better your current solution or your new solution is over the current solutions. Describe your technology. What does it do? How does it address the problem? How is it superior over the current solutions? How does it fit into what the customer does? Not all solutions fit into what the customer needs. I mean, if they have to go out of their way to use it, it may not be a good fit. So you have to make sure that your new technology allows the customer to solve the problem in a way that they want to solve it. Why would they value the improvement? So the more you can dig into that, the better the chances are that you'll be a success, because you have a good value potential. Also, how you get it to market may be important to determine what the potential revenue is versus the costs. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but you might get some information about that during your market research about the current solutions. We're going to talk a little bit more about IP, but is IP protection required? Likely the answer is yes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But really, it's what is your unique advantage that the current solution offers to the customer that the other solutions don't? And what advantage does it have for you as the developer of the solution? Do you have a way to discourage copying? One way is to have a patent on it. There may be other ways. Okay, let me give another example. This device is an old form of an inhaler. It really is it's older, so it was a giant inhaler. But what was it used for? So believe it or not, insulin, it was figured out how insulin could be delivered through inhalation. Insulin, as I'm sure everyone knows, is a small protein or large peptide that's normally delivered by injection. But they figured out a way that they could aerosolize it. And so they could deliver it by an inhaler so people could breathe it in through the lungs. It would get into the bloodstream and control the blood sugar. And they showed that this would work. It was approved by the FDA in January 2006. Pfizer, Nectar Therapeutics developed it. Pfizer was going to market it. And they thought it would be a multi-billion-dollar device and drug delivery device. They expected lots of copycats to jump on the market once this great revolution started. However, this is product market fit. What advantage did this provide over the existing technologies used to deliver insulin? Really, the existing technology were injections. They're minor. Not everyone likes needles, granted, but insulin needles are very small. They're minor. They're very accurate. You can determine exactly how much insulin you want to deliver through an injection. This giant bomb of an inhaler, it's not so accurate. Getting a reproducible amount of insulin into the lungs was not easy. So not accurate. Injections, those insulin needles are small, they're very discreet. There is no way that this is discreet. If you took this out, you're in a restaurant, there's no way to hide that you're taking a hit of insulin. Whereas injections, most people don't even know that you're having an injection of insulin. Exubro, the inhaled insulin, was 30% more expensive. There's copays with it. They're not accurate. It was not discreet. There was really no advantage over the existing technology, with the exception of if you really didn't like needles, then maybe this was your preferred method. But it turns out that that market is really, really small. And the actual worldwide sales was just 4 million. There was no significant adoption of this technology by the marketplace, which is the real test. So Pfizer halted the program in 2007 and wrote off the $2.8 billion they put into the program. And you'd think that, well, obviously the problem is that this giant inhaler is the problem. If you could just make that small, that would be the solution. But it turned out mankind, another biotech company, did exactly that in 2013, 2016. Still wasn't adopted by the market. Nobody wanted it. There was no product market fit. The drug is needed. People who are insulin-dependent diabetics, they have no choice. They need to take insulin. But there's no advantage to it. There's no advantage over the existing technology. There is no value proposition for the customer. So they did not have product market fit. And thus the commercialization failed on that technology. Okay. So I'm just going to continue on with product market fit. We talked about understanding the problem, understanding the technology that you have and what it does and how it is superior over the existing solutions to the problem that are in the marketplace. Don't do what Pfizer did and make a product that offers no advantages over the existing technologies. And then we want to talk about who has this problem. Who is the customer or user of the technology? You want to understand what that market is. You want to understand if it's a single market or if it's multiple market segments. If it is multiple market segments, then you want to pick the one you're going after first. What is the first market you want to engage with? And why? What makes them, the proof of concept for the fact that this product would have a place in the marketplace? Understand your customer, understand what decisions drive them, aside from the problem that they're dealing with, which your technology provides a solution. You like to understand, well, who makes decisions around adopting the new technology? Is it the end user? Then it's quite straightforward and quite simple. You sell to the end user. Maybe somebody else makes the purchasing decisions and somebody else is the user. If that is the case, you want to understand, why do they make those purchasing decisions? Do they just buy the cheapest product or do they buy the best product? What drives that decision making? And finally, you really want to understand how many customers are there? In other words, what is your market? How many customers could you sell to on an annual basis? Depending on how your technology gets into the marketplace. So I want to talk a little bit about that, just as an example. Customer numbers. This is sometimes called customer-driven forecasting, where you know the number of customers or number of sales you can do per year, as opposed to, or bottom-up numbers, as opposed to top-down numbers, where you just say, you're in a market that's a billion-dollar market, you hope to get a certain percentage of it. That does not work in business plans and in pitches. People want to understand who the customer is and how many there are and how do you quantitate it. You want to understand, how do you know your numbers? What assumptions did you make that goes into how many customers you have? If you don't have the exact number and you're making assumptions, just say how you made those assumptions. Is it reasonable? It's important to be clear about where your numbers come from. Don't make anything up. Okay. I will give an example of customer numbers, just to show you an example of a breakdown where it's, maybe not necessarily obvious at first glance where these numbers come from. So for example, if you had a drug to treat ischemic stroke, how many patients per year could you have? Well, you can say the incidence of stroke in the US is 795,000 per year. So you have 795,000 potential patients per year. But it's not that simple. It really isn't. Your drug is probably going to go into patients, at least at the beginning, your first market, those who are having their first stroke. So is this their second, third, or fourth stroke, may not be used. You're going to go after patients who have their first stroke. So that turns out to be 76% of all the strokes in the US. And if the drug is for ischemic stroke, there's two types of strokes. There's those caused by a blood clot or ischemic stroke, and there's those caused by bleeding or hemorrhage. Most of the strokes are ischemic strokes. So, but this drug that is to treat ischemic strokes, really only, you would not give it to someone with a hemorrhage stroke. So let's say it's an anticoagulant to prevent ischemic strokes. You'd never give that. That would be contraindicated for someone with a hemorrhage because it would make the hemorrhage worse. So it has to be an ischemic stroke. That turns out to be 87% of all strokes. Of course, to know whether they're a hemorrhage or a ischemic stroke, you have to diagnose them. And so you're going to have stroke patients that have CAT scans. And you're also going to give it to patients where there's a good chance that the drug will provide an improvement. So if it's a really massive stroke where there's no hope of recovery, that patient would not receive the drug. If it's a super mild stroke, where it would be really hard to measure any benefit because the stroke is so mild, any improvement would be hard to measure. Probably won't give it to those patients. Those patients are fine, they don't need it. It'll be those patients in the middle, the medium level of stroke. So those patients need to be diagnosed and categorized. Well, it turns out that's 85% of patients. And you're going to target, so diagnosed and categorized are at 85%, and those with the medium stroke you're targeting 60% of those. So even though you started with 800,000 patients, you're down to 270,000 patients. So, half, pretty much less than half. But it's a big number. But you have a more accurate number of what your market is, total market is. And if you know that you could charge about $15,000 per treatment, then you have a $4 billion market. The reason that's important is that if you have a $4 billion market, then as an investor, you want to bring this product to market. It's going to take clinical trials. It's going to take a lot of money to get there. For a $4 billion market, I might be willing to put at least put in $50 million to get this moving along into the clinic and testing whether or not it works. It's not a bad bet if the data looks good up front. Right? So you want to be able to understand what is your market, how many customers do you have, what does that market look like? It's roughly based on market comparables. What revenue could you get for your particular product? And then what does that market look like? What's the value of that market? So bottom-up forecasting or customer-driven forecasting is what we want to see. Next topic is, what is the value proposition? So we've already covered this. This just reiterates it. How are customers dissatisfied with the current solutions? What do they find valuable about the new solution? Why are the current ones inadequate? The new solution presumably addresses all those problems that make the current solutions inadequate. And in what way is it better? Can you quantitate that in any way? The more quantitation you can do, the better. It's not absolutely required, but if it's possible, it helps, and especially helps down the road when you're trying to sell this to your customers, because you can say how much better it is and add a number to that. But how do you know what your customers value? That is the big question. Why didn't BioNiche know that farmers didn't actually want their product, that they weren't willing to pay for it before they spent all that money in its development? Why didn't Pfizer understand that, customers really didn't want an inhaled form of insulin? They were perfectly okay with the injected form. You really have to talk to the customer, or some way get out there and figure out what the customer needs and what they're looking for and why the problem is the problem, and why are the current solutions inadequate? So anything you can do to get customer feedback, any way you can say that, yes, I talked to a bunch of customers and they confirmed or validated that this is a problem. They validated that the new solution is better than what they currently use, and they would really like to use it. Anything you can do to do that will make you rise to the top in terms of your business plan and your pitch competition. So very important if you can get to that. Okay, so I talked about product market fit. It really is the first step in assessing the market. Does the technology have a place in the market? Does anyone care about it? Is the problem significant? Do customers care about a new solution? Is the problem important and they're dying to fix it? They're just waiting for someone to come along with a new technology that will help them out. So it's a product market fit. It's just a way to frame that discussion and that information. You want to understand the problem need, the customer, value proposition. And it really forms this approach of addressing product market fit. It really forms the foundation of how you write your business plan and pitch the idea in the pitch competition. Because that information about what the problem is, who the customer is, what that market looks like, what is the opportunity that market represents, and why is your technology better than what's out there, and what does that represent in terms of the market opportunity? That's the key to the pitch. So you want to assess the market. And I'm going to give just a few examples. These examples are kind of geared towards health technologies. Not everything is a health technology though, but the general approach of market assessment is this kind of the same. It's just where you go to look for the information. You know, you're all going to go to primary publications, PubMed, or whichever way you want to look up publications. It gives you information about the market that you're looking at. There are general market research reports that are available, BCC research. I assume you all have access to an academic library, so you can get access to these. There are professional associations that provide statistics about the market of interest. In the medical field, there's lots of associations, American Heart Association, Centers for Disease Control, NCI, but every technology area will have an association that quantitates statistics in that field. So finding those associations and finding the statistics in the field that give you information about numbers in the marketplace are really helpful in your market assessment. If you can find anything about how reimbursement occurs in your market, that's key. In the medical market, it's more complicated often than in the other markets. Often in the other markets, it's just a straight sale. You may not be, you may not need insurance companies to pay for the products. So understanding how the reimbursement pathway works is important. Understanding how you will get paid for your technology is important. Okay. So you're going to do all that. You're going to understand product market fit. You're going to know that your product works. You know you solve a need in the market. You've identified the first customer segment you're going to go after. You've talked to a bunch of customers, and you've validated the value proposition for the new technology. You know they want it and that they'll change what they're doing, stop using the existing technologies. They really want the new one. Okay, you got product market fit. Now what? Now what do we do? So the next thing is, okay, now that we've assessed the market and we say, yes, we have product market fit, how do we get it to market? What's the next step? What is your commercialization pathway? So I'm going to cover, this is just a summary, I'm going to cover some of this in a bit more detail. You need to develop your technology. You need to understand, where is it now? And where does it need to be to get onto the marketplace? And what does that pathway look like? What is your IP strategy? In this case, you're working with different universities with the tech transfer offices in each university. You can make connections with them and find out, the IP strategy for the technology in question. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Are there any other hurdles getting this technology to market? Are there regulatory hurdles or compliance hurdles you need to meet? Who's going to manufacture it? Are you going to manufacture it? Or are you going to license this to someone else who will take care of all the manufacturing, the sales, and the marketing? What does that look like? So we'll talk a bit more about that. Will it be spin this out into a business, or will it be licensed to someone who is already in that business, who will take care of all the commercialization steps? And then, what do you think the value is? What's the revenue model? What do you think the value of the product is? And if you need investors, when? Now, or a little bit down the road? And then if investors get in, when do they get out? As I like to say, is it a business or a line item? We'll talk a bit more about that in a few moments. So the role of IP and commercialization. So IP, there's various forms of IP, patents, trade secrets, copyrights, trademarks. All of them can be important in the commercialization strategy of the technology. I'm going to assume in this case that it is patents that are the main focus for all of these technologies, that you can reach out to your tech transfer office, to the business development manager who's managing this product, and find out, what is the IP strategy that's being used. Different categories of products tend to use different IP strategies. Some software may not be using patents, but some standard products, manufactured goods, new machines, new inventions, they probably do use patents. So what is a patent? So a patent is an agreement between you and the government that gives you a right, or gives the inventors a right, to prevent the manufacture, sale, or use of another patented, it prevents the manufacture, sale, or use of the invention in exchange for making it public. So you can prevent other people from using the technology in exchange for making it public. In other words, you get a patent, no one else can use that patent. You're the only one that's allowed to use it. You get to prevent others from using it. In exchange, you make it public. That's the deal with the government. And by making it public, others may decide that, if they can have access to it, that they will improve upon it. Patents are regional, so they do have a cost to them. And that cost is determined by region, or each country will have a cost. So you have to understand that patents are expensive. So you may not patent everywhere. You may patent just where your focus of business will be, in order to protect that region. That's where you want to do business. Having a patent, because it's a negative right, it allows you to prevent others from exercising your technology. It doesn't guarantee that you won't infringe someone else's IP. So if there is a patent, you'll want to make sure that you have something called freedom to operate, that you won't infringe other people's intellectual property. And if there's a chance that you will, then you'll need a strategy for dealing with that. You may need to license the use of another group's technology, or you may do a search and you find out, yeah, you've got complete freedom. You're not infringing anyone else's patent, so you're good to go. The real value of patents, though, and why we talk about them and why we emphasize them, is that they can be this ownership right, this monopoly that you get. That right can be bought, sold, or licensed for use. And so therefore, they're really key to the commercialization pathway that you select. You have the right, if you have this patent, that you can license its use to another group. If you own the patent, you can license this to another group. You can sell it to another group. And likewise, the other group can buy it. So that gives a lot of value to the technology, and it's used to attract investment. So if a commercialization pathway is to create a company and develop the technology, if you have a good technology, a good development plan, and you own the IP, that is enough to attract investment into a company, because they will see value in that opportunity. And having that patent allows the investors to have an ownership share in the company that owns that right, that patented right. So there's lots of information about patents that are available. The Canadian Patent Office has a big learning module on IP if you want to learn more about patents. Also, if you want to learn more, reach out to your local tech transfer office for your technology and understand the intellectual property strategy behind your technology how it's being used for your technology. Patents are the most common, but they're not the only way to protect a technology and not the only way to attract investment. You know, trade secrets, copyrights, other forms of intellectual property are also important. You want to understand the technology development pathway. What does it look like? What are the main milestones you need to meet in developing your technology? Where is it now? Where does it need to be to get onto the market? This is a medical device standard technology development pathway. You may not be a medical device, right? So each category of product will have its own unique development pathway. They're often an iterative process. You're at a point where you're testing, you get the results, you may need to modify the device. There may be a testing period in there. If there is, you want to understand that. And you want to make sure that you can meet all the specifications you need to meet to make this product a success. In other words, this product needs to be better than the current methods to solve the problem. And you want to be able to satisfy the customer's needs. So you need to understand those needs. And then you want to make sure that the product works in a way that it does satisfy those customer needs and is better than the current ways the customers use to solve the problem. So understand the main milestones by which you get your product to market in terms of just developing the product itself. And yeah. You want to understand the major milestones and any major hurdles. So a milestone may be a regulatory milestone. It may be a financial milestone. You need to raise money to get to the next step. You may have a technical milestone that you need to meet. So you want to understand the milestones, the major milestones from where your product is now to where it needs to be to get onto the market. Are there any regulatory hurdles? You know, if you're a medical device, you have FDA, Health Canada, but even just electrical products, they have to meet certain standards. You can't just create an electrical product and start selling it. There are regulations involved. You may need CSA approval. And there may be, depending on your device or product, there may be other regulations involved. So you want to understand the regulatory environment that you're working in. And one way to do that is to understand the competition and the regulatory environment that they were working in, because you'll probably be the same. So when you do your market analysis and your product market fit, you understand who are providing the existing ways to solve the problem that the customers are using. You can try to figure out how they got to market and what were the regulatory hurdles involved. So now you've figured out how the product, where it is now, where it needs to be to get onto the market, what the regulatory hurdles, what the major milestones are. Okay, what is the commercialization pathway? Who is going to do it? For university technologies, there's basically 4 commercialization pathways that we use. It doesn't mean that those are the only ones. There are alternates, but really, I'm going to go over the 4 main ones. And you want to select the one that best applies to your technology. So the simplest pathway, the most straightforward way of commercializing a technology is to take the early idea that you have, the patent that has been applied for, and you then just license that patent to a third-party company that is already working in that industry, and they will take over and do the rest of the commercialization activities and get the product and get onto the market and get revenue and presumably give you a royalty back. That's the most straightforward. but it doesn't always apply. There's not an endless number of third parties that are dying to take on early stage ideas. It's only if it really is the perfect fit for that company, because really they have to be in the business of adopting new technology and developing them and then selling them into the marketplace. And if that isn't their main business, they may not want it at this stage of development, maybe too early. You might require, a bit more development before a company could be interested. So that would be the second way to get this to the market. That is, you have an early stage idea, but it needs to be developed, right? You need to get some investment into the technology and get this technology developed to the next stage. It may be that, it's a manufacturing technology that works in a lab, but now you've got to show it works in some scale-up situation to a small scale, but it works outside the lab. Maybe it needs that validation that it works outside the lab. And that's going to take a little bit of investment. You might be able to get some commercialization grants to do that. And you may attract a company that is interested who may put some money into it to get it to advance to that stage. And if it does, in exchange, they will license it. So this is sort of the second common way of developing university technologies. Find a third party that's interested, get some initial investment, combination of grants and private investment, develop the technology, validate that it works in the real world to some extent before they will take on the technology, take on the expense of the license and the further development to commercialize it and get it to the customers. Okay. The third way is when the amount of money needed for this development is really more than you can get out of a small amount of commercialization grant or third-party investment. Maybe it's going to take a fair amount of money. In which case, what is the common way of doing it is to take this company and license it into a startup corporation. And that startup corporation is going to raise financing from investors to then do the development work to get this product to a point where it's ready to be taken on by a third party for commercialization. Oops, let me just go back. So this is the standard biotech model. I don't think any of the technologies are a biotech technology, but it could apply to other things. In this situation, the amount of money you need to get the technology to a state where a third party would be interested, it's likely millions of dollars. So you need private investment to do that. But the value of the technology is very high. And the third party will compensate the startup and the investors once it gets to the stage where they de-risk it sufficiently for them to take it on. So that's the way basically all biotech products work, but it does apply in some cases to other products where there's a very high value product, but also an expensive development pathway. And then finally, a pathway that is underutilized, but could apply to many different things. And that is where you license the technology into a startup, you get investment, and fully develop the product into a commercial product, and then they turn into a commercial company, and they sell it to the customer, and they continue with customer growth. At some point in the future, they might be taken over by another company, but they don't need to be. So this is going to a startup, and that startup takes it all the way and turns it into a product that is sold into the marketplace. And that really is a pathway that we would like to exploit more than we do. It applies to many technologies, but it doesn't apply to all technologies. And this is where, in your research for the market that you're going after and the value of the technology, you need to determine is the value such that it would support a business? If it is, then this pathway is viable. This pathway is viable, and this pathway, 3 and 4 are viable. If that product, when it gets onto the market, is worth a significant amount of money, that would be enough to support a company. If the product's a perfectly good product, but it really is not a high value product, it really is better off in the hands of an existing company or a line item in someone else's catalog that they're already selling into that market. They already have their own expenses for their own products, and you're really just adding this to their catalog because it's not you won't generate enough revenue to support a company, but you do generate enough revenue to make it a perfectly good single item product. And that really is a licensing play that you'll be using, and it'll be licensed to a third party who is in the business or in the business sector that your technology addresses. So understanding the common commercialization pathways is important. That needs to match the value of the product and the value of the market for that product that you reveal in your market research. So I just want to summarize. Keep in mind, we're creating viable commercialization strategies. And that's the goal. That's the goal of the business plan. That is the goal of the pitch. You want to pitch a viable commercialization strategy. We want to understand how the technology allows for a new product or service that's needed in the market and valued by its customers. So that's where your product market fit comes in. You're going to identify a sustainable business model. You know that it solves a problem that customers have, that they care about. The current ways of solving the problem are not adequate. The new technology provides for a better way for the customer to solve the problem, so they want to adopt it. It has a value proposition. You want to know your numbers. You want to know the size of that market. Is that it's maybe a perfectly legit product, a perfectly good marketplace. Is it enough to support a company? Are you going to commercialize it by creating a company and developing it? Or it's maybe not quite that valuable, so but it's a needed product, so you don't license it to somebody that is already in that marketplace. But you've done your homework. You know the competition. You know all the companies that are selling in that marketplace and who are the likely candidates to adopt the new technology and commercialize it and sell it. Understand the commercialization pathway and how you get your technology to market. Okay, that is it. I'm going to stop the slide share and then we'll just open it up. And if you have any comments or questions, it's pretty straightforward for your business plan. Remember, it's 4 pages. Cover all those topics in a very condensed fashion. You do your research and your market assessment for the technology. Show there's product market fit. You understand the commercialization pathway. You understand the role of IP in either attracting investment or licensing to another company, and how you're going to get this to market. So, any comments or questions?
You stun them into silence, Colin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for these valuable information. It was great.
Thank you. Your name is the same as a computer. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know why it shows that. My name is Zara. Thank you very much.
All right.
I had a question. So, are we allowed to, talk to the founders of this technology to understand at what stage are they at and to gain more insights?
I would say talk to the business development manager that is managing that technology at the university, and they can either address your question or they might put you in touch with the inventors of it.
So we're currently at the stage where we're assessing the abstracts. The committee is assessing the abstracts. And once I know next steps on that, I will convey it to everybody. And then if you want to speak to the tech managers and then speak to the PIs, we can facilitate that discussion for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else have a question at this point?
It probably is really simple and straightforward for everyone, I hope. Go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Hi, Colin. I asked in the comments if your slides could be shared with participants.
So we were just talking about that. So Rebecca is new to this, and I don't remember how we did it in the past.
I think we've done that in the past, but
We've
I
got
just
no
don't
problem
know.
with it. We just got to figure out how to do it.
I'm just going to figure out which method to use.
Thank you.
So we'll be in touch.
Any other questions from anyone? Doesn't look like it. If you think of something after, feel free to email me and I can put you in touch with Colin and facilitate those discussions. But you'll hear from me in the next few days with the outcome of the abstract submissions. So just watch your email and we'll share the presentation and the slides.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.